Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday night edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're getting into all things UFOs tonight. Chris Rutkowski is here, one of Canada's top UFO researchers. As you know what, we never book an American guest for 4th of July. Why? Well, they're kind of tough to get. Everybody's partying, and I hope you are too, along with us. Happy 4th of July to all of our American friends, listeners, and guests. All right. Let us say hello to everybody in our chat room tonight. Where are we starting here? Let me take a look here. We are starting with Tim Mothman and his goatee in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver. Christine Lynn taking home the bronze medal tonight. Michael Morris, Chris 716, and Simon the Likeable. Good to have you here. Robert Lamoth has returned. Robert will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Continuing on here. Let us say hello to Lee the Bee, Little Timmy in the backwoods, Brown Dwarf, Noble Patrick. How you doing, my man? Good to see you. Radio Wendigo, how are you? Good to have you here. Kitty Cattywhack, thank you for joining us. Eternity Eternal, Melvin from Mars, good to see you both. Hello there, Chris. Teen, nice to have you here. All right, number 76 in your program, starting at defense. From Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. T-Bone, my man, the pride of New Westminster. Nice to see you. Hi, Paramarv. Thank you for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call. Millennium, my man, thank you for joining us. Xochitl Paez Richards is here. Xochitl will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Swamp Gas Jenkins, thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call tonight. Thomas Rock, purple-haired Pixie Lara, thank you for coming on in. Hello there, Human Carl, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. We absolutely love you around here. Continuing on with our roll call tonight, Cliff Sy, good to have you here. We continue on. Skip Tamalu, good morning to you in Europe. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Thunderhead, what's happening, my man? Good to have you here. Scrolling on down. Marty Burback, good to see you. And who's next here? Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got America, my man. You've got America. And B, thank you for coming on in. And who's next on our roll call list? Let's take a little peek here. Well, big conversations going on. Got to keep on scrolling. Richard Hauser, good to see you, my man. Mike Rivers, how you doing? And Jessica S. Good to see you. Sandy B, welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, Biofuel Brad. The pride of Winnipeg right there. Yep, Phineas over on X. Good to see you. You're in early for once, my man. Thank you for joining us. Hello there, Vanessa. Good to have you back. And let's get the radio sign going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we're looking into UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them. All right. Chris Rutkowski, legendary researcher, author, is here to talk about the UFO story on both sides of the border. You're really going to love this one, I promise you. We are in roll call right now. Pissing me off, Evan Walters, and the show hasn't even started. Gory Tiger, thank you for coming on in. Hello there, Cindy. Thank you for joining us. Excuse me. And did I miss anybody so far? I know it's going to be a little bit of a slower night because of the holiday, but that's okay. All right, continuing on, the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do nightly for you on this show. Yeah, because we're here nightly. Literally 7 days a week we are broadcasting here. And if there was 8, we'd do 8 days. And you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, everybody. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can actually wear our stuff in public and be proud of it. That's the way it works around here. Yes. So go shopping. Hit the website, spacedoutradio.com. Thank you, T-Bone, for kicking off this super chat tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support of this show, because we work hard for you, my man. We do. Everybody else, throw those horns up. Time to rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out, bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're getting all UFO tonight. Canadian researcher Chris Rutkowski from the beautiful city of Winnipeg, Manitoba, is here to join us to talk about some UFOs. We're going to have a cryptid report. We're going to have the Dave 101, and it is the weird news of the week. Yeah, I always love that section. I really do. Chris Rutkowski is a Canadian science writer and educator. Since the mid-1970s, he's written about his investigations and research on UFOs, for which he is best known. However, he has been involved in many other writing and media projects for more than 30 years, including television specials, newspaper columns, and, every radio and podcast network that puts out a request for him like us. Yeah, but he likes us, so that's why he comes on here. Chris has many published books on UFOs and related issues, a collection of short stories, and has contributed to many other volumes, both fiction and nonfiction. But his love, his passion, is what is flying in the friendly skies of North America. Chris Rutkowski, it's good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
Pretty good. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You are somebody out there that I would recommend to my audience to show a lot of real understanding to, because I think you're one of the best out there. I really do. Not just because you're a friend of mine, not just because you're a fellow Canadian, but honestly, I really believe that you are one of the very few researchers, Chris, that is doing this for the right reasons. You're not doing it for popularity. You're not doing it for clicks. You're not doing it for subscribers. Okay. You're doing it because you feel it's almost a moral obligation to humanity to get these stories out. Why have you never fallen into the cesspool of social media and UFO grandeur?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. My altruism is showing through. I don't even go to a lot of UFO conferences. I'm very rarely invited. I guess maybe people don't want to hear what I have to say. I don't buy into absolutely everything. I'm a sort of a Jack Webb kind of guy. I'm just interested in facts. But the facts themselves are fascinating, and you just have to tell straight stories. I see myself as a facilitator, someone who encourages and advocates for people who have had experiences, but for those people who want to know the truth. And there's a whole phrase about how everybody should keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out. And there's a lot of gray matter on the sidewalks these days. I've never really gotten into the whole, lecture circuit kind of thing. I prefer, doing things like podcasts, although I don't do a lot of them. You're one of the very few that I really do. But I've published a lot of books. I'm always asked for commentary if there's something in the news, because people have to get the information from somewhere, and I would like to make sure that people get accurate information. And that's not always popular. In the great movie Ishtar, a fantastic movie, by the way, everybody should watch it. There's a great song there that starts out about how being honest and popular don't go hand in hand. And if you tell somebody that you play the accordion, you'll never be invited to play in a rock and roll band, although Weird Al is the proves that wrong. But it's getting the truth out there is what I'm after.
You've been seeking the truth since literally, I think I was about 2 or 3 years old. And I'm not gonna age you here or anything like that, or age myself, because people know my age if you see how much gray hair I have. And it's sad to say that I have more gray hair than you.
Yeah.
But for you on this mission of mystery, you have seen the governmental side, you've seen the cover-up side, you've seen the experiential side, you've seen the eyewitness side. And to this date, 50 years later, we're still debating this. We're still debating who's right, who's wrong, what the truth is, what's being covered up. Are we getting anywhere, Chris, or are we just doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results?
Yeah, that unfortunately, some of that is quite true. We're not seeming to get any closer, and everything old is new again. I was interviewed by an American station earlier tonight, and I was asked about congressional hearings. Isn't it exciting that congressional hearings might be on the way for the United States about UFOs? And I said, yeah, but there were congressional hearings on UFOs in 1968, and nothing really came after that. In fact, ufology took a nosedive because the congressional hearings were in 1968, and 1969 Blue Book closed down. So be careful what you wish for. If you want more congressional hearings, it's hard to tell what might happen after that.
Well, what's funny about these alleged new hearings that we have coming up, could be possibly as early as this month or maybe next. To me, the previous ones of the latest incarnation really hasn't solved anything. We keep hearing this word transparency being thrown around like it's a gummy bear with CBD in it, and yet nothing is ever transparent. We don't hear any type of movement forward. The people are sick of the stories. They're sick of the anecdotal evidence. They're sick of hearing the trust me bro type attitudes, even though I'm not that guy. I like hearing a good story, but for the most part, people want the truth. And I don't know if the truth is as easy as we think it is with whoever the president is standing at the podium at the White House saying, my fellow Americans, we are not alone in the universe.
Well, and it's interesting you talk about how people are kind of sick of that by now. It hasn't even been 10 years since the Leslie Kean article in New York Times, which blew the whistle and said, yeah, there actually had been a program to investigate UFOs with the Pentagon, 2007 to 2012, somewhere in there. And so that really started a lot of the interest. A lot of people who are listening today, will say that they got interested and hooked by this stuff that was revealed in 2015. And here we are, 2024, and we don't have a lot more information than what's there. We know we have AARO and ATIP and some of the other acronyms that are going around, but we don't really have the meat that goes along with it. People are saying, yeah, okay, it's been 10 years. Well, from my perspective, it's been 50 years. We after Blue Book closed down in 1969, we have this big black hole, a gap between 69 and, let's say, for argument's sake, 2007, when we had no information whatsoever about what UFOs were being reported to the Air Force, what was being done, were there official investigations, and so forth. We didn't have any of that information, but there are lots of stories. There were lots of cases that were going on after that point, after 1969 into the 70s. We have, Pascagoula. We have, some of the classic cases that were going on throughout that period over. We don't have official investigations. We know a lot of people were seeing things. And that was the era of a lot of the groups, APRO and MUFON really, flourished during that period following Blue Book closing down. So it's, the interest from the public is there, but the official stories and data we just don't have. And that's what people really need. They're saying, yeah, these are great stories. And like you say, we all like good stories, and there's some great stories out there. But, give us something a little more substance or substantive. And we're waiting for that. And, I was reading on X just today, from some of the big names who are saying, yeah, just coming, but in another 10 to 18 months, there'll be something really good. Of course, they said that 10 to 18 months ago. So is something coming? I have no idea.
I don't know if it's coming either. Like the people I've talked to, they often say, there is nothing coming. And then you get the other side saying, oh, don't worry, it's happening. It's happening. It's just around the corner. Well, every psychic prediction I've had, it's always just around the corner, but that corner never comes. I've seen a couple of bends, but that corner never seems to end, man.
Yeah. I don't know what it's going to take. I suspect that we're going to be hearing a little bit more over the next little while, because the possibility of hearings, and there certainly are going to be some more statements by congressional members, from senators, people in various positions in the government, perhaps through some of the whistleblowers, or the so-called whistleblowers, or whatever they really are. We might get more information that way coming soon, but we just don't know, because we have heard this before. I want the data. Give me the solid data. My scientific background says, give me the data, and until we get that, it's really hard to speculate. I mean, I've seen some great videos on YouTube and some podcasts and vlogcasts from people saying, hey, this is how the UFOs and the UAP are flying around. This is how the propulsion works. They use telepathy and mental powers to fly them and steer them and all this sort of stuff. And they're made out of bismuth and all this sort of stuff. But we just don't have enough information to really say things for sure. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I want to know things a little more certain. And perhaps there's enough of a push, enough of a surge from your listening audience and from other people, and perhaps in positions of power. We're going to say, let's get to the bottom of this. Now, the problem is that this next year, I think people's energy and minds are focused on a political situation in the United States. Until after November, and who knows after that, people are going to be focused on other things, and UFOs, as much as people would want them to be mentioned during debates and whatever, they're certainly not on the same level of urgency as the economy and inflation and borders and all that sort of stuff. They're very important, and if there really is a alien presence on Earth, you'd think that would be that would take precedence. But right now, people's minds are focused on more pragmatic and practical things. So until that's done with, I don't think we'll see much movement in the UFO field. But maybe after that point, people's focuses will be, on something else.
Chris, is disclosure healthy?
Healthy. Well, the old War of the Worlds kind of thing, is it going to cause panic? Do we really want to know? Yeah, and here's the other problem I have, is that a lot of the military cases that are supposedly out there, people say are being covered up and held from the American public, I think are done so legitimately. There's no question that some UFO reports or UAP reports that occur in, currently operating military theaters, in the Middle East or in the Far East. I mean, there's all these things that might be, there's a military incursions and operations going on all the time. So if something's seen by military pilots on a special mission, maybe the public doesn't need to see that, because it could cause endangerment of the military personnel themselves. So I can see legitimate reasons why we shouldn't be told about this. But in disclosure, in terms of whether the aliens are here or not, what the government really knows, I opt for let's put all our cards on the table. Let's hear what's really going on. If there are aliens that are really visiting Earth, it would be nice to know that.
My concern right now is twofold. Number one, I don't know if I want disclosure, because I'm more fearful of the humans and the human reaction than I am about the aliens coming here. Because for me, I've had enough experiences with my own eyes to already have had my own disclosure. So I know they're here. But what I fear is what I know is being talked about in Washington, D.C. And Lou Elizondo brought it up, about the excerpt from his book that was released. The book will be out in August, where they are fearful. How are religions going to react? What is this going to do to the economy? What is this going to do to people's psyche? This is what I fear. And even way before that came out, I've been saying this since 2017 when the New York Times article came out. Disclosure is a dangerous thing, in my opinion.
Well, I understand that. And, I'm going to quote Stanton Friedman, who said the same thing, that, the political stuff is the only game in town. And that, if it's finally announced that aliens are here, you're right. The economy, religion, all of society is going to be, really in a state of upheaval. And so there are arguments to be made for maybe we're not really ready for this. Maybe our society is better off without knowing all this kind of stuff, and wait until we've reached a real critical mass, and who knows what that would be, and who knows when that would be.
What concerns you about disclosure?
What concerns me? Well, in some ways, we've already had it. Some people have said that we're in the post-disclosure era. From my perspective, up here in Canada, we've had a complete record of military and government UFO files and reports right from 1947 to the present. I was one of the individuals who was getting the Transport Canada cases. I was privileged to get the Department of National Defense reports directly, all through this period. So, from my perspective, I've had these reports of amazing things seen by pilots and other really capable witnesses all along. So for me, we've never stopped having disclosure. And what are we waiting for? I mean, I think a lot of people are looking for, that's catastrophic disclosure. Is that the term, where the aliens sort of show up, where the government suddenly announces that the aliens are here? And yet we've had reports from pilots even long before the Nimitz and all these videos that we've seen fairly recently. We've had reports from pilots. We've had reports of things crashing going back many years. So in some ways, disclosure is not really even that relevant to people like yourself who know what you saw, and the fact that we have all these reports. Maybe we don't even need disclosure.
Do you see this as a disclosure movement, or do you see this as a confirmation of the phenomena that, we're learning it's here, but we're going to keep it silent in what we truly know, so that way we're not giving up our own secrets?
Well, I mean, disclosure by definition implies that there's somebody who's going to be doing the disclosure, that somebody is the gatekeeper and controlling what's going on. But we already have this information, so they're not doing a very good job of it. And so in some ways, I think what you said is probably correct, that what was looked for is a confirmation that we knew all along that that's what was happening. And perhaps, we need something like the Pentagon either, this is a number of scenarios. One would be the Pentagon saying, yeah, it's true, we've been tracking them, and there's been some interesting cases, and we've worked with the aliens or have been in communication for some time. Or the Pentagon saying on the other side, nothing to see here, folks. We've investigated everything that's been reported to us, and it's more terrestrial than extraterrestrial. So, but the fact that the Pentagon would be making statements like that, one or the other, is something that people are looking for, and we're not really getting much in either direction.
What would be the ultimate?
The ultimate. Well, I think the ultimate would be for probably the United Nations to be part of this, because we're talking about something that would be global in nature. And I know the arguments about how the United Nations is irrelevant and all this sort of stuff, but at least it has representation from a lot of countries on this earth. And because if there really are aliens out there coming to this planet, borders drawn on a map mean absolutely nothing. They would look at us all as Earthlings, and would be a way to unite us. Here we are, July 4th, the movie Independence Day, and that was the day the aliens just looked at us and said, "You're all Earthlings. Let's enslave you all or blow you all up or whatever." So we'd be all on the same boat. It would be time to really unite and work together. And, Ron, the clip that you play at the very beginning of your show from Ronald Reagan, maybe we need something that will unite us and bring us all together. No question that contact with an extraterrestrial race would certainly do that. So, maybe that's what we really do need.
Do you think it would? Do you think it would bring the Catholics, the Christians, the Protestants, the Muslims, the Buddhists, and everybody else together?
I think in an ideal world that would be it, but unfortunately we're human and with human foibles, and there would be those who would exploit the relationship, create factions, carve out deals and all that sort of stuff. And maybe that's why the aliens haven't done it. There's no one who speaks for Earth. There's a lot of people who would claim to speak for Earth, but no one who would speak from a global perspective, unless it would be someone who would be the chair of the United Nations. And there is a treaty. There's an outer space treaty that was created back in the 1960s about how to deal with crafts and so forth approaching Earth or in Earth orbit and that type of thing. So there is a tradition.
Chris Rutkowski, researcher, author out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, UFOs over North America. We're going to get the Canadian side for you right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Take care. We'll be right back. All right, my man. We are clear. Remember, our YouTube audience can hear us. That was a strong start there, my man.
That was pretty good.
That's what I love about you. You can answer any question. You really can.
The mysteries of the universe. We're going to solve it all right here.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Are you a Jets fan too?
I don't really watch a lot of that, a lot of sports. So, haven't been. I don't think I've ever attended a Jets game.
Really?
No, I don't think I have attended a Jets game. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. My mom was.
You're talking about the New York Jets, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
My mom was a giant Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, because she was born and raised in Steinbach.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. That was way back then when it was just a Haldeman Mennonite community.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you go to that Mennonite museum, that's like my grandfather, his brothers, my great grandfather, all my great uncles.
Really?
That built that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've been out there a few times. There's that windmill and and the old time stuff. Very Amish in nature for those people who are watching on YouTube. It's a very, very old timey country kind of thing.
Oh yeah. It was funny because back when I was like 21 years old, I was helping a friend of mine who was coaching junior hockey in Creston, BC. And I went to teach a hockey school there with him and then help him get training camp started. And I figured, you know what? I've never been to Idaho. Going to quickly drive down to the first town in Idaho, buy some potatoes just to say I bought Idaho potatoes in Idaho because I'm kind of silly that way. Hit up Bonners Ferry, Idaho. And it is like every relative of mine's cousin there. Yeah, all the ladies with the black beanies on the back of their head, all the men with the beards, no mustache.
The olden folk.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it was just like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me, but that's all right. It's kind of cool. Kind of cool.
Heritage. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we got about 1 minute, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. God, this is fun. I could talk to you every night. Every night on this show, I could talk with you.
Now T-Bone's the only one who stepped up a bit here. Come on, people.
Look at that. Cheering me on. Thank you.
Yeah. Now I see a lot of people are talking about fireworks. So they actually played down fireworks up here in Canada because they really want to move towards drone shows because I guess a lot of animals are really upset by that. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine down in Texas, he lost a couple of his dogs because they got so freaked out from the fireworks during 4th of July that they escaped from the yard and got run over on the highway. No. So they really are down on 4th of July fireworks now, and I see the shift now from fireworks to drone shows. I think drone shows are probably the way to go because I've seen some really spectacular drone shows now, and you go on YouTube and you can see some beautiful ones.
They are getting pretty cool with that. Getting really cool with that. We've got about 45 seconds here. Thank you, Aloha Dave, for hanging on out. Appreciate the super chat. We've got about 30 seconds here.
Of course, drones are also our bane because a lot of UFO reports turn out to be drones these days.
Oh, I know, including one shot down by F-22s over Yukon.
Yep.
Boy, I'm going to get to that momentarily here if I can remember, but I got an angle I want to hit up with you here. Thank you to T-Bone and Aloha Dave for the super chats. Let's go with the next half hour, everyone. Here we go, the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking UFOs tonight with Chris Rutkowski, and we'll get to Chris here momentarily. First, I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, or hit us up on any major podcast network. They're all free for you. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Author, researcher Chris Rutkowski out of Winnipeg, Manitoba is here to talk about UFOs. And now we're going to focus north of the border here in Canada, which is Chris's specialty. Chris, thank you so much for coming on in.
Thank you for having me.
In August or September, we are expecting the Canadian report on UFOs from Dr. Mona Niemer, Canada's top scientist, and this project that they call Sky Canada. Now, from what I've heard leading into this, she's having a lot of problems getting information from Canada's alphabet agency. It's almost like they've taken the role of the Americans, where the alphabet agencies have stopped giving anything out. And I'm curious how you think this is going to go, because it's much different angle than what our brothers and sisters to the south are looking at with their own UFO disclosure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that I'm in contact with the office up there. As a matter of fact, I had some emails this past weekend from the Sky Canada people. And it's important to know that the Sky Canada project in Canada is different from the AARO and what's happening in the United States. The Sky Canada project is more a fact-finding thing about what's going on right now in terms of what departments are involved, who's who, the numbers that we're talking about, that type of thing. So they're not actually investigating reports. They're not putting together lists of cases. They're not looking historically. They're not, looking to, change anything that's going on right now. They are, really surveying departments, trying to figure out what departments are involved right now with UFOs and UAP. And so their report, I think, is going to be a letdown to a lot of people, because it's not going to disclose anything other than what has been done in the past. It's not going to say this is the revelation. In fact, they're going to make it quite clear, I think, that right now there's not a lot of transparency in terms of UFO cases and UAP reporting in Canada, much like the United States, I suppose. Transport Canada is actually a little more transparent than the FAA. Transport Canada actually has a category called UFO for pilots to report objects in the sky, and cases are reported through there. But there's a non-governmental organization called NAV Canada, which actually oversees that and actually takes the reports. And they sort of, and because you can't actually get Freedom of Information access requests, or in Canada, access to the information requests to get that information from NAV Canada, we don't know exactly the extent. We don't know who investigates. We don't know how many cases there are. They're not being very transparent about that at all. And yet, as I mentioned, Transport Canada itself does have this category, and pilots are using that category in incident reports all the time. And from my perspective, I had been receiving, government and military reports up until about 2022 or so, somewhere in there, directly, because I had been involved with the National Research Council of Canada's Hertzberg Institute, and they, graciously gave me access to the reports, and I've been receiving cases through military bases and through the Air Force, up until that point. So I have a sense of what actually had been reported, and I've been making those cases available on blogs. There's a lot of my documents which are available now on the Swedish sites, and I donated all my UFO reports to a university archive that they're slowly working through cataloging them, and they're going to be digitizing them as well. So, the access to all this information is much greater than what's in the United States right now. Canada has been, because through my work, Canada's cases are, relatively accessible, but we don't have the same access in the United States. And I think that's what people really want to see.
I think they want information. I think they want, some sort of understanding. But I also know that in Canada, we have this unwritten rule that if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist or it doesn't happen. Okay. I've talked to a number of politicians and MPs in Ottawa and elsewhere regarding this subject, and they are all kind of shocked that the governing party, which is Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party, has never spoken about this. Not even the defense ministers have come out talking about this like we've seen in the United States. Why do you think politically this has been such a mute topic?
Yeah, they haven't come out publicly for a number of years, but they have. I mean, my book that I'm working on right now, I have a contract for another book. It's not going to be out for a while now, but I'm detailing Canadian government involvement with UFOs and UAP over the years. And defense ministers have actually answered questions about UFOs in Parliament on a number of occasions. We do know that a previous defense minister was actually briefed and asked for a brief about UFOs and UAP about the same time that everybody was excited about a UAP following the New York Times incident. And so, they actually haven't made any public statements, but some MPs, some senators have gone public about UFOs, but the defense not necessarily. And why that is so, I'm not sure. But again, there's a lot of stuff happening right now, and I think from the government's perspective, UAP are not a higher priority than some of the other stuff that's going on.
You know what? I've talked to a few fighter pilots, both present and past, with the Canadian Armed Forces, and none of them will admit that they've had encounters or calls with UFOs. I don't know whether it's because they don't want the press, they don't want their name tied to the story, they don't want to lose opportunities. I'm not sure what it is, but there seems to be a real strict line that you do not cross as a pilot of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Well, I would say recently that may have been so, but I have many government documents of military pilots who came forward and filed UFO reports that are now available from things that they had seen. But it's true that in the United States, the AARO and the ATIP reports, they made a point, and Kirkpatrick's in his historical note as well, they made the point that there is this the stigma attached to reporting, and they actually included some wording and got some they're not actually laws, but they have this understanding now that they're encouraging military pilots to come forward without fear of any kind of retribution for talking about UFOs, and so many have come forward. I don't know what the number is now, whether it's 600 or 700 cases that they have now, almost all from military personnel, that are going to be part of the reports in the United States when they finally are released. We don't have any of those, but we're told that there's that many. So there are people coming forward now, and the United States, in Canada, maybe we'll get, a few more pilots coming forward. Airline pilots are coming forward all the time. Military pilots, slowly. And I think with just a matter of time before, we do hear more about that.
Member of Parliament Larry Maguire has continued being vocal about this subject because of his belief that there are secrets there that need to be opened up within Canadian airspace, and especially in his portfolio around nuclear power facilities. He has talked to many people south of the border. He's talked to many people on this side of the border, and really still seems quite wry about where to take this subject. Is that because he doesn't want to go too crazy on it? Or is it, in your opinion, because he's not getting as much support as he thought he would regarding this subject?
Well, I think it's probably the latter. I think he's not getting a lot of support. There are a few other members of Parliament who have supported him. Raquel Dancho, I think, is another one who has come out in favor of trying to get more transparency.
Michelle Garner, too, who follows us on X. She listens to the show and follows us on X.
Mm-hmm. So there have been a few others who've come out. But I think it's true that there's not a lot of traction that's coming. And of course, Maguire, his party's not in power, so it's hard to raise the issue any more than it has. But he's very persistent. He has talked with a number of people. I've talked with him. He actually had me brief him at the beginning of all this back a number of years ago, and I've met with him. And it's something that he is personally interested in. So, for a member of Parliament to take a personal interest in this is actually quite significant. There have been a number of Canadian politicians who have done that over the years. In fact, there's something like, I think I've counted 40 or 50 times that UFOs and UAP have been mentioned in Canadian Parliament. Now, there haven't been a lot mentions in Congress of UFOs and UAP, but actually on the floor of the House of Commons, it's been raised a number of times. So I think it's just a matter of time before it's raised again.
If Pierre Poilievre, who is the leader of the Conservative Party, gets elected as Canada's Prime Minister next year, or maybe even before that, do you see the UFO subject coming to light?
I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I know that Poilievre, would be looking for ways of cementing his relationship with the Canadian public, and if he does get in, it might be with a majority, and if so, he would certainly have some sway. And I think that there would be enough requests from the Canadian populace about UFOs and UAP that he would take seriously any attempt to reveal what is really going on at the government level. The Office of Canada's Science Advisor is nonpartisan, so there will be some movement in that, and the report that's coming out by Sky Canada this fall will set the stage. There will be recommendations in there, and we'll see what kind of recommendations are made. I certainly made recommendations over the years to government officials, and perhaps some of those are going to come to fruition.
Yeah, I would like to see some of it come to fruition too. And I've been asked a couple of times my opinion on where this subject needs to go. And the first thing, without being too insultive to, those at the Pentagon, I said, can we get this out of American hands?
Hmm.
They're playing a threat narrative. We're trying to play a scientific narrative. I said, the more you guys keep shopping this subject in the United States, I believe it's going to taint what you do.
And a safety aspect as well. I mean, we're also concerned because, I've said a number of times that if Canadian pilots or pilots of any country flying through Canadian airspace are, encountering UFOs, and they are, because we have the documentation that show that, that is a safety concern. And if it's just a matter of the technology, the radar is malfunctioning, the transponders are malfunctioning, or if the pilots themselves are seeing things, or if there's something actually there, in any of those scenarios, it's worthwhile, investing some money to keep passengers safe. I think there's some good reasons there from a safety concern. And you're right, Canada has approached the subject of UFOs and UAP from a scientific perspective. I mean, Sky Canada is from the Office of Canada's Science Advisor. What's going on in the United States? It's Pentagon, it's military, it's, sort of a rehash of the Cold War. And rightly so. I mean, there's some concerns globally on what's going on in terms of military and incursions and whatnot. So, there's some reason there. But it's true, there's another way of looking at it. And traditionally, Canada, since the 1960s, was looking at UFOs from a scientific perspective and not so from a military perspective. And, and the reverse is true for the United States.
Politically speaking, could this cause tension between the Canadian Department of National Defense and the Department of Defense in the United States if they clash on results of UFOs?
That's a good question. I think that, part of I think the good news is that Canada is partners in NORAD with the United States, and there is a sharing of information of objects that are being detected. Most people are probably not aware that the head of NORAD at any one time switches between a Canadian and an American. And so, if there's UFOs that are being seen by American pilots and reported through NATO, it's sometimes a Canadian commanding officer who is advised of that. And the same is true the other way around from time to time. So there's a lot of sharing of information. So I'm not sure whether there'd be a clash because they're really working together on so many other levels. It's hard to imagine that the disagreement in the approach would cause any issues.
Do you think, though, that if it comes down to it, considering that the United States can be very heavy-handed with their military and their continued support of Canada, that they could say, look, we appreciate your study. We're going to take that knowledge that we're learning, but we really, really do not want this coming out?
Well, there's no question that the American the American side would certainly be overbearing on the Canadian side because of the just simply because they're larger and they're more powerful. That's how it is. And it is true that one of the reasons that Sky Canada is conducting the operations that it actually has in its mandate that part of what they want to do is to have something to contribute to American discussions. And so, whatever happens in the United States in terms of UFOs, Canada will certainly not necessarily toe the line, but will certainly want to contribute to the discussion in a meaningful way. And I think that's why Sky Canada is working hard to get a grip on what's being done, so that in the discussions that are going to be ensuing regarding UFOs, that Canada will be sitting at the table.
Could Dr. Mona Niemer at the end of that study come out and say, we believe there is some sort of life force or something that is flying around the Canadian sky? What do you expect to happen there?
Well, it's more of an exploratory program, and I don't think that there'll be a statement of belief along those lines. Mona Niemer herself is, I think, a chemist, if I'm not mistaken, or a geneticist. So her expertise is not in physics or astronomy, but she certainly would have her opinion informed by some of the physicists, and there are some very good physicists in Sky Canada. So I suspect that what would happen would be that there would be a statement that, I envision, there's a real phenomenon, that Canadians are reporting UFOs at whatever rate. I know 10% of the Canadian population and in the American population believe they've seen UFOs, and that the number of incidents themselves suggest that there's something that should deserve further attention by the scientific community. And I think that's where the conversation is going to lead.
Defense-wise, I have talked to a couple of defense contractors here in Canada who both said the same thing, that this story, much like in the US, in Canada, is starting to go behind the scenes. There's too many public people, like politicians, like Larry Maguire, who are asking questions. There's too much money at stake now regarding UFO/UAP technology, and they want to get a part of that. There's a lot of change within this system that is going to throw billions of dollars at these companies, and they're all taking their conversations privately. Have you heard that as well?
Well, defense contracts have been very, very lucrative in the United States. Not so much in Canada, although, I'm going to come clean. I actually had a Canadian defense contract with External Affairs back a number of years ago in the 80s and 90s. My contract was to investigate how satellites in orbit, if you put a telescope on a satellite, how well it could examine other satellites and how well could it examine objects on the ground. So this was actually part of Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program, but it was a Canadian defense contract. Mine was one of a number of operations that was going at the time. And even at that time, I had a very, very low clearance to what had already been done. And there were already things that I had found in my research at that time that are very similar to what is being done and conceived right now by things like the Galileo project based at Harvard, which is developing instrumentation for examining things in the sky and automating computers to track the objects and sort out which ones are airplanes and birds and whatever, and which ones cannot be explained. That was already done years before my own defense contract back in the 1980s. So, what is actually being capable of being done right now, I don't know, but I wouldn't doubt that there's some interesting defense programs out there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what plays out. Like, I was talking to one of my sources earlier today before the show, and I just asked this person, I said, "What's going on?" And he's like, "All quiet. It's the way it's going to stay for a long time." He goes, "You better get used to it." And I'm like, okay. I can see why this is going undercover. They don't want weirdos like me, Chris, and other people, poking around asking questions. They don't want politicians asking questions.
They don't want me either, apparently. So you're in good company.
Chris, on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Chris Rutkowski, researcher, author, former defense contractor, and just downright awesome guy. More UFO talk when we return. And what's happening over the province of Manitoba? Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, my man, we are clear. I'm going to put you in the green room.
Okay.
And I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back in a couple minutes, okay?
Okay, tinkle time. Yeah, okay.
Yep, exactly. Hi, Scan Man. How you doing, Doc? Good to see you. Be right back, guys. I am back. Trying to pry an 11 away from his VR at 10 o'clock at night is kind of tough. High Necessary Dialogue. Travis, how you guys doing? Yeah, if you have any questions for Chris, put them in capital letters and I will get them to him. Felipe, how you doing? Good to see you.
I can answer, Travis.
Travis is he's First Nations just north of Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, incredible storyteller and just a wonderful, wonderful person. All right, we got about 3 seconds. Thank you to W. Decker, Dave, and T-Bone for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support, everybody. Don't forget, if you're new here, hit subscribing, that bell. We really do appreciate seeing our numbers go up. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out. Here we go, everybody. All right, let's kick off hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio and every major podcast network. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam is at the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we got? Unbarufin. Unbarufin is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Chris Rutkowski is here, author, researcher, the man on top of the mountain when it comes to UFOs over Canada. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
Chris, I got to ask you, you live in the beautiful province of Manitoba, and I have talked to numerous people behind the scenes who keep telling me one thing: watch Manitoba. Watch Manitoba. Watch Manitoba. What is with Manitoba that has so many within the alphabet agencies and the UFO community with their eyes on it?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. A lot of what has gone on in Canadian ufology has been in Manitoba. You know, we've had some of the most major cases, Falcon Lake and Rivers and a few others. Some very significant UFO researchers and personalities have come out of Manitoba. Myself, Grant Cameron, MJ Banias, who's not active anymore, but he's from Manitoba. And there have been a number of others that originated. And, you know, NORAD has been based in Manitoba. You know, it seems to be one of the centers for a lot of action and a lot of thought on the subject of UFOs, if not the cases themselves. And, you know, in the United States, of course, there's Roswell and places to visit. Well, one of the prime places to visit in Canada, if you're into UFOs at all, is Falcon Lake. Which is a small town, which is kind of a resort. But they've really embraced the Falcon Lake UFO story from 1967. You're mentioning swag. Well, Falcon Lake produced Falcon Lake beer, which we have a nice UFO on it there. Not only that, but there's Falcon Lake coffee, if you can believe it. And so, there's a you can take guided tours to the Falcon Lake UFO site. So it's a center for taking an understanding and bring a lot of this to the public. And there was a report called the Robertson Briefing, not the Robertson Report it was the CIA in the United States, but the Robertson Briefing, which was based in Canada for Chief of Defense Staff, highest ranking military officer in Canada, asked for a briefing on UFOs in the 1960s. And there were 6 cases that the Department of Defense highlighted for the Chief of Defense Staff back in the 1960s that they put their, all their weight behind. They said these are the most interesting and verified cases in Canada, and most of the cases were from Manitoba. So, why, I don't know exactly, but it's tourist trap.
Well, one of the subjects that I talked to, and I'll be blunt, I don't think I've mentioned this on the show anymore, or ever, pardon me, and that was with Lou Elizondo.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him point blank, we were texting each other, and I said, where in Canada should I look? And all he said was, watch Manitoba.
Interesting.
And I think in talking to other people, they tend to think that there may be some sort of vortex or place where they just pop in Manitoba, and that's where they usually enter the United States. Kecksburg is a prime example of that. Okay, and other cases are like that as well as there have been crashes in Manitoba that have been recovered. Not the Jarhead one, because I think you're the one who told me that was actually a military case, but there have been crashes, and there has been one that nobody knows about.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question that I know that I mentioned MJ Banias. He did speak with Elizondo quite a bit, and I'm sure he knew that Banias was from Manitoba, so there might be connection there. In my research, I do know some of the interesting military cases, the radar cases in Canada. Some of them were found to not be explained by, but at the same time that the UFOs were being reported, there were military flights from the United States that were flying from the far north through the center of Canada, through Manitoba, down to the United States. And so it's sort of even a military corridor in that regard. And so, there are some reasons to keep an eye on Manitoba. You're talking about vortexes. There was a number of individuals who were convinced that there was a vortex just northeast of Winnipeg. I think in Manitogan or something like that. And then supposedly one out a little bit further west in Manitoba. So it's possible. I don't know. One of the earliest UFO cases in Canada that is very well documented was 1792, where explorer David Thompson with Andrew Davy were camped out in the far north in Manitoba. And while they were camping out near a place that is now near Thicket Portage in the far north, they said that they saw this bright object descend from the sky and crash onto the ice-covered lake near them. But they said that they actually heard it make a sploop sound, like it was made out of jelly. And they went to investigate, and there was no sign of anything that they could see, and it was very hard to get to. Of course, back then, there's literally nothing up there in 1792. So, that the first UFO crash in Canada occurred in Manitoba.
My goodness. There have been talks that USOs, or unidentified submerged objects have popped out of both Lake Winnipeg and Lake Manitoba on a frequent basis. What do you know about this?
Well, we get reports from people along Lake Winnipeg all the time. Lake Winnipeg, people don't know, it's sort of like the sixth Great Lake. It's quite large. We do know that search and rescue operations are conducted. Remember, as I mentioned, Manitoba has a training command for military, and they conduct search and rescue training operations, and they do drop flares. Here's those flares again over Lake Winnipeg, and every year, even when they announce that they're dropping the flares, we do get UFO reports concurrently with the flare drops. So there's part of that. I have heard of stories about UFOs coming out of Lake Winnipeg, not so much Lake Manitoba, but oddly enough, West Hawk Lake, which is very close to Falcon Lake. I've heard of things that it's a very, very deep lake. It's a meteorite crater, and there's stories about things being under the lake in there.
Including a lake monster.
Indeed, yeah.
You buy that story? The lake monster in the lake?
Maybe not West Hawk Lake, but Lake Manitoba is the place where the monsters have been seen. In fact, I think we have on record now. I'm very Fortean in my approach, so I started out in collecting and investigating cases of everything from UFOs to Sasquatch to lake monsters to everything else in between, ghosts and whatever. And Lake Manitoba has something like 40 or 50 reports. Up until the just a few years ago. I remember speaking with a master angler who knew Lake Manitoba backwards and forwards, and he swore up and down that he had seen this, the head on a long neck, come out of the water and proceed near him, and then pass by his boat. What do you do with cases like that? It's really, really fascinating.
Let's get to a couple audience questions here while they're building up. And let's start off with Travis in Edmonton, who is asking, why do most of your books come off like you don't believe in the phenomena?
Well, I disagree. Here's one of my most recent books, Canada's UFOs Declassified, in which case I give, and I published many reports and official government documents and case files from government agencies like National Defense and the Air Force, including a lot of pilot cases. I actually have the documents themselves in the book, so you can look at them yourself. And that's certainly not saying that the phenomenon isn't real. And we're talking about Falcon Lake. I'm going to have her plug. Here's When They Appeared, which is a book I co-wrote with Stan Mahalik, who was the son of Stefan Mahalik, the guy who was burned at Falcon Lake. That certainly isn't, anything that I say the phenomenon don't believe in the phenomenon. So I'm sorry, Travis, I disagree.
That's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. Let's go to Joe in California. Chris, what do you think aliens are thinking about when they look at the United States and see fireworks and explosions?
There's a great BC cartoon. It was in the comic dailies, and it has these two aliens on the moon looking down at Earth, and the one alien saying to the other one, what's going on down there on that blue planet, and they think there's any life. And the other alien says, "Oh yeah, there's definitely life." And the other alien says, "Well, what's with all the fireworks and explosions?" And the other alien says, "That's life." But what do I think? I would hope. I don't know what they would think about fireworks necessarily, but a lot of what's going on Earth, the aliens are right to stay away.
Necessary Dialogue is asking, where can we get UFO reports on Canadian pilot sightings?
Well, there's certainly some in the Library and Archives Canada. Not recently. They closed the National Research Council files quite a number of years ago. Transport Canada has what's called Canada's reports, and those are available to the public by contacting Transport Canada, and they actually send them to you every day. As a matter of fact, I got today's just about an hour before the show. There were, I think, 125 incident reports, not all UFO reports, you have to understand. There's a lot of, blown tire, disruptive passenger, bird impacts, that type of thing. But there's some UFO reports that do make it into the Transport Canada files, and they are available to the public. So there's a couple of sources right there. And of course, I do, write about them a lot in my blogs and in my books.
Love it. Love it. We'll go to a couple more questions here. Scanman is asking, are there any UFO reports associated with the Royal Canadian Air Force, United States Air Force interception of Russian bombers coming over the pole?
Well, two parts there. I don't know if there are UFO reports that are filed like that. I had a interesting report that crossed my desk when I was still getting the Air Force reports. And because it occurred in Canada, it was reported as a Canadian report, but it was an American refueling exercise that was going on in the Canadian far north. And during the refueling exercise, the American pilots, this was a couple of American planes that were flying, and they had seen a UFO. The pilots of those planes had seen a UFO. Whether those are Russian bombers or not, I don't know. I find it personally interesting that incursions into American airspace, let's say off the Atlantic coast or the Pacific coast, by Russian or Chinese aircraft or foreign aircraft of any kind, are routinely mentioned in media reports. In fact, if you can Google incursion, aircraft, on the coast or whatever, and those things are routinely mentioned by media because they are very, very much of a concern. But if a UFO is reported, you don't get those kind of reports in the media. And Russian bombers coming over the pole, we would hope that they're not coming over the pole, but there's no question that Russian aircraft are active in the far north, and that's why Canadian Defence has increased its patrols and increased its funding. With the opening of the Northwest Passage, Canadian ships are increasing a presence in the far north. The Americans are doing that now. I've just found out that you can actually board a cruise ship and book a cruise from Alaska to New York through the Northwest Passage, because the Northwest Passage is open now. And it's a very long cruise. It must cost something like 20 grand or something like that, but it stops at all Canadian ports throughout the north, like Joe Haven and Cambridge Bay and places like that, and eventually make it into New York Harbor all the way from Alaska. That's fantastic. But that shows you how common it is now for vessels of both marine and air to be in the north now. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if Russian aircraft are flying up there, but I'm hoping not Russian bombers.
Yeah, let's hope not. Let's hope not. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the Canadian media there in your last statement, as we got about 5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour here. I don't know about you, but I've been very disappointed outside of, say, Daniel Otis with the way the Canadian media has treated this subject. I have done numerous interviews around this country, and very few of them ask the Canadian perspective. They want to know what's happening in the United States, but they have no interest in trying to make this a Canadian story. They never seem to ask the follow-up of what is happening in Canada. Why do you think our media has been so fickle regarding this subject?
Well, that's a good question. I know, and Otis has done a tremendous job at highlighting this. He's really digging and finding interesting documents, and if there's a report, he chases after him. He and I chat quite a bit, as a matter of fact, and we give each other tips on stuff that we've heard. It's interesting that he's doing that. Up until the point he started doing that, it was relatively quiet, and unless there was a particularly interesting case. Why that's so, I'm not sure. Canadians do tend to be a little more conservative. I do know that there have been some polls that show that Canadians in general, were less interested in the subject, whether that's because of the lack of media or whatnot. But I think that given the right circumstances, Canadian media would be interested in the subject. In fact, I've been at this since the 1970s, and I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 interviews that I've done throughout this entire period with media where the reporters or the journalists, made light of the subject. They've taken it very seriously. And I think that's something that is different between the Canadian and American media. I think when they do report on UFOs and UAP, they tend to report in a more serious vein, with a lot less of the chuckling and nudging and wink that I think American media do. Mainstream media anyways. There's no question that Canada doesn't have the equivalent of News Nation, for example, and so those are a little bit different. But in terms of mainstream major news networks, Canadian media have been generally quite conservative, but at the same time have been taking the subject a little more seriously when they did do them.
Yeah, I can see that, and I can attest to that. But as a former member of the mainstream media, I can tell you that there has not been a lot of interest. Mm-hmm. They don't seem to want. They're interested in the United States side, that this debate is going on. But even when I've tried to turn the conversation into, this is happening in Canada too, they don't bite on it. It's a strange thing.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate because in some ways the Canadian experience sets the pattern for what's happening in the United States and in fact around the world. I may make the point that the Falcon Lake case is much more important than the Roswell case because we actually, have government documents that attest that something existed. Shag Harbor, there are government documents that admit that something happened. There's no government documents in the United States that admits that something crashed in Roswell or an alien craft crashed in Roswell. There's things that, mogul balloons and dummies falling out of airplanes and things like that. But there's nothing about a UFO crashing in Roswell. We do have documents like that in Canada, and many cases that really do set the tone. And there were the Canadian government investigations. We have thousands and thousands of pages of documentation that show that the Canadian military was investigating, often in conjunction with the United States military personnel. So I think the Canadian experience, I think, is the key.
I still think with under a minute to go here, the media needs to do a better job. They really do need to do a better job in covering this and realizing that this isn't a United States thing. It does need to be covered here, and it would be impressive if we actually saw that happen.
And I will note that Daniel Otis, his ability to cover UFO stories has been reduced because of cuts in Canadian media right now, in terms of jobs and that type of thing. So even he has been hindered a little bit recently. So yeah, I think they need to do a little better job.
Yeah, I would agree. Chris, hold on right there. We got Chris Rutkowski for a little bit longer here. This is Spaced Out Radio, UFO talk all night long. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be right back, everybody.
You're
listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. This is good stuff, my man.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Excuse me.
There's no excuse for you.
I hear you. You know what, though? But there should be major Canadian documentaries on Falcon Lake and Shag Harbor and other areas. I know they've been done, but I don't think they've ever been done properly. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. Yeah, no, they haven't been done well enough. I mean, there's been some outstanding ones that a lot of your audience doesn't know about. Spaceman, which was a CBC documentary on GEM, detailing an amazing case of Granger Taylor out in BC, out on the island.
That's actually one of the. We're actually in the process of independently creating a television pilot.
Oh, cool!
And Granger Taylor is one of the stories that we're going to be doing.
No, that's cool. Yeah, so there are some interesting ones there, but it's true.
What do you think happened? Sorry for cutting you off there. What do you think happened there? Do you think that he, did himself in like the RCMP believe he did? Or do you think that something more happened?
I think he did. I think CBC actually flew me out there for the documentary, and we spent some time looking around the area and talking with people. And I think the evidence is there that he probably did either accidentally or deliberately blow himself up. He was a fascinating individual, and it would have been interesting to spend some time talking with him. But he left behind a suicide note, and he gave away his coat, or I think he gave away his coat or something like that. And it was really unfortunate, but it's a great story, and I think you guys would be definitely worth making a pilot out of that as a lead. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're doing a mixture of stories that are real small town legends.
Mm-hmm.
We're not interested in the big stories. We're interested in all of the little stories that are how can I put it? That are Langenberg has to be told. Which one's that?
Edwin Fuhrer, 1974. He was swathing some grass in a field in Saskatchewan, and as he's driving along, he thought he was looking at some duck blinds that people had set up in his property. They were silver, and they were scattered throughout the field. He stopped his tractor, got on stood on top of the chair, and saw that there were actually 5 spinning upside down bowls, silver in color, and they were spinning in the grass, and they took off one by one and zipped away. And when he went to take a look, those were the first crop circles found, 1974. Grass was swirled and depressed in these areas, investigated by the RCMP. The RCMP themselves couldn't understand what happened. His family said he came back to the farmhouse all upset and excited, and he was freaked out by what he had seen. There's markings, there's physical evidence. He was a solid witness. Case that people don't know about.
I'd never heard of that one.
Oh, it's a classic.
See, there is a small town in Saskatchewan. I believe it's closer to the Manitoba border, where they have a ghost train.
A ghost train. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And the tracks aren't even there anymore. But apparently you can go out there at night and you will hear the train coming and you will see the light. But if you chase after the light, you'll never catch it.
Oh, wow. There's a spook light in Manitoba that I've been out to investigate a few times at Woodridge, southeast of Winnipeg. Kind of an interesting story. The The light had been seen way long before, but this goes back to the train tracks, and there was no roads, but the train tracks were there. Somebody was apparently got a little too drunk, walked home along the tracks, got too tired, laid down on the tracks, and the train came by, decapitated him, and the light apparently is his body holding up a lantern looking for his head.
Oh my.
Great story. Great story.
That's the stuff I love. Chris, hold on one second. Thank you, Cosmic Joe, T-Bone ×2, W. Decker, and Aloha Dave for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. We'd greatly appreciate it. Give us a follow on other social media as well. You can do some shopping in our store, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag, people. You'll be proud to wear ours in public. Here we go. All right, let's kick off the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate you coming on in and listening to the amazing stories that we have for you. Reminder, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio or on any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have until the top of the hour. Chris Rutkowski is here hanging out with us, talking UFOs all night long, because why? What else would we talk about? We like a good UFO story here. We really do. Chris, thank you for doing this tonight.
Glad to be here.
Chris, out of everything that you have learned regarding unidentified flying objects, do you believe that these craft, and this is a great debate in the U.S., are from space, have been here forever, we just never noticed, time travelers, other dimensions? What is your theory on this?
Well, if I had to pick something, it wouldn't be dimensions or time travel. So I disagree with Masters and the crypto-terrestrial kind of thing. But I'd like to think that we would be interesting enough, and that aliens would be so much smarter than us that they would have figured out how to travel between the stars easily, that we would be interesting enough to be visited. And, maybe there's a prime directive where they're not allowed to directly influence us or directly be seen. And that's why, UFOs appear to be seen and then disappear again. That type of thing. And we do, according to Star Trek, prime directives can be bent a little bit. So, there's some exceptions to the rule, but, maybe there's a way that aliens might be interested in here. I don't know, if that's possible, but that would be my choice of the various options.
Do you believe that we will ever know the truth to that? Do you think that governments know?
Well, yeah, I doubt whether the government knows more than anyone else. Seriously, I mean, a lot of people are looking to the government to reveal all, and they're going to come out with disclosure. And all the confidence is in the government. And I'm thinking, this is the same government that no one trusts, right? Because no one believes anything the government says. No one believes, some of the statements, and the government is, has been shown to be incompetent by so many people. This is the government that's covering stuff up, and this is the government that supposedly knows what's going on with regard to UFOs or UAP. There seems to be a contradiction there. So I'm not sure about that. And will we ever find out? Well, I recently came across, again, I remember it when it happened at the time, but it came across my desk just about a week ago. The Curse of Philip Klass. Now, for those of you who don't know, Philip Klass was the skeptic to end all skeptics, the arch skeptic, much worse than Mick West, for God's sakes. because he wouldn't even bother investigating. He would just dismiss things out of hand. So Phil Klass was the ultimate, and he came up with a curse, and I don't remember it word for word, but you can Google it. It's there, and it was something along the lines of, for all you UFO investigators and fans of UFOs, Phil Klass said, "May you never find out the truth. May you go to your grave without knowing anything more than you do now." And it was, yeah, I say it's wonderful. In some ways, it's very disheartening, but it's a wonderful thing where, Phil was so convinced that there would be no truth ever uncovered, and that the facts would never get proven one way or another, that he did this. And he gave this curse back, I guess must be the 70s, something like that. And he's been proven right to an extent, but we know so much more than we did back then. That we do have some admission by pilots and by some government officials that things are really going on. So we know a little bit more, and yet the absolute truth, the absolute proof, still eludes us. So there's a little hint of that, and I think that drives a lot of people. A lot of the people who are, tuning into Spaced Out Radio tonight, they want to know. They have the curiosity. They're determined to find out more. And what a better place to find out really accurate and good information about UFOs other than right here. Superfan.
That's right. That's right. You're waving the SOR flag right there. I love it.
And I'm going to say, you're talking about swag. I have an ultimate swag that I really doubt anybody else has. This is an official baseball of the Las Vegas 51s. And the Las Vegas 51s were the farm team. Do you have the cap? You have the cap?
I got the baseball cap.
Yeah, this is
the 51s right here.
Yeah, the 51s were the farm team for the Blue Jays. Can you believe there's a Canadian connection to Area 51 right there? And it just shows that there is this interest. People are fascinated with the subject, and they really want to know more and get a piece of it. And that's why there are ball caps and balls and beer and and coffee and everything. So. And in Canada, and here's the plug, Canada does this so much better. This is a coin. We'll put it right up there. This is a coin. Canada has a series of, I think 8. I think you're going to have eventually 8 coins. And this is legal tender in Canada, depicting famous UFO cases. And the Falcon Lake was the first one. And I think I can actually do this. I think I'm going to do that. It'll screw up if I do it this way. But if you shine a black light on it, the UFO actually beams up. It's really quite interesting. So the Canadian government, the Royal Canadian Mint, commissioned a series of coins depicting famous Canadian UFO cases. That shows that there's an interest, and that the public is interested.
What amazes me about the Canadian UFO coins, not only I've got one, I just got one a couple months ago, my first one, and now I'm like, damn it, now I have to spend thousands of dollars to get the collection.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that amazed me about this is, and I've asked you this a number of years ago, but I'll bring it up back here because the coins continue. UFOs are not considered part of Canadian heritage. And yet here we have the Royal Canadian Mint, which has to be signed off by the Ministry of Finance. And in the original report, when people like you and me inquired about it, they stated that it was because it's part of Canadian heritage.
Mm-hmm.
When did UFOs become part of Canadian heritage? Because they started this way before the To the Stars Academy and this UAP crap started. Okay, they began this. And here we are looking at this. in one of the most popular currencies ever made in the world, and they're using the sign that it's Canadian heritage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that.
It's part of our culture. UFOs are part of our culture, are part of our society. I mean, you look at commercials on TV, and there's aliens on there all the time. In terms of Canadian heritage, the Canadian government actually gave money to a fellow named John Musgrave in I think it was in 1970 something or 77, 78, that they gave him money to produce a book about UFOs in Canada. And in 1967, the government gave some money for a Centennial project in St. Paul, Alberta, to make a UFO landing pad, which still exists today. And in the little town of St. Paul, Alberta, well, another great location if you're looking for a vacation spot for UFO people. And so there, has been some of this lip service all the time. As a matter of fact, there's another aspect of this. We're talking about Falcon Lake, and I showed you the beer and the coffee. I was contacted by a government ethnologist because there's a movement and a plan to name a small lake after Stefan Mihalik out near Falcon Lake in his honor because of the heritage and the story that goes along with it. So there will be a lake named after a UFO experiencer.
Good. He deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
He deserves it. He didn't ask to be a part of that history.
No, that's for sure.
But it sure happened. I want to get to the Yukon, because when the alleged UAP/drone was shot down by an F-22 coming out of Elmendorf Air Force Base, because as much as I love our Canadian Armed Forces, the poor pilots have to fly a CF-18 that has never been updated to today's technology. Mm-hmm. And they're literally still flying first generation FA-18 Hornets that were converted to CF-18 Hornets. And I will say this. I remember at the time, then Defense Minister Anita Anand coming out explaining that this was a drone, that it was about the size of a VW bug. It was going very slowly, and that's why the CF-18 Hornets could not lock on, and they needed to have the F-22 come over from Elmendorf to shoot this down. At that point, they said that they knew where it was. Now we cannot allegedly find it, and we're not sure if it was a Chinese drone. This story seems to be changing as time goes by. What is your thoughts on this, and what was that?
You mean this document right here?
Yes.
Where it says from the Prime Minister's office to the Privy Council talking about the object shot down. And it says down there that the CF-18s couldn't, they were in the wrong place and they weren't able to get to it. So the F-22s from the United States were sent up. But this is the official Canadian government document that talks about what was shot down over there. I side with I'm still a doubting Thomas. I'm sorry. Maybe Travis is right. I don't know. But the trouble is, when you use a Sidewinder missile on a small object, it's 20 feet in diameter or something like that, there ain't much left. So there won't be any debris to be found whatsoever on the ground, if anything is found at all, especially in that rugged terrain up there, Alaska, Yukon, and so forth along the Cumberland Strait. So there won't be any debris to be found. And it's, was it a drone? Was it a balloon? I don't know, but I don't think there's no way to verify at this point because they literally vaporized the darn thing.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just remember Anita Anand stating that it was a drone. It wasn't a UFO. She never used the term UAP,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was the size of a VW Beetle,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
going at about 40 kilometers an hour, which equals to about 25 miles an hour, 28 miles an hour, somewhere in there.
Drifting along. Yeah.
Was she playing the role? Because that's a pretty honest answer.
I don't think she was playing the role. I think she was trying to give as much information as she had. It's important to understand that the Minister of Defense in Canada does not necessarily have the highest security clearance. In fact, I've been told that ministers of defense actually have to apply for specific situations in order to get clearance and access for the information, because they're not automatically given that clearance when they hold office. So maybe she herself had not been given the whole information, but I think she had as much information as she had and wanted to give it to the Canadian public as honestly. I'd like to think she was being as honest as possible.
In that piece of paper that you have, I noticed it said UAP report. Do you think it was a UFO, or do you believe, like I do, that it was a Chinese drone?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Canada has traditionally used the term UFO. Even today, when a lot of people use the term UAP, Canada still uses the term UFO. And the reason that the document says UAP is because it was a joint American-Canadian mission. And as you said, the F-22s were the ones who actually shot it down. So that's where the UAP comes from. I think that the confusion between UFO and UAP, has led some people to make some inferences that people think UFO, alien, UAP, drone, or whatever.
That is what my research has stated, is that, and I really learned that through the drone practice that was happening with the United States. Is we had generals in the United States stating that this was not a UFO, it was not a UAP. And then I've talked to people on the inside who say there is a great difference between UFOs and UAP. So sorry for interrupting you there, but
no, as a matter of fact, to this day, and I just got, this is from a CADOR's report from Transport Canada from June the 30th over Ontario, and a Jazz de Havilland from, let's see, where was he flying from? Throughout Ontario, reported a small black remotely piloted aircraft system, drone, at 11,000 feet flying below them over Lake Ontario. So first of all, there aren't a lot of drones that fly at 11,000 feet. Very, very few, as a matter of fact. But this is something that was reported by a pilot to Transport Canada, and it's technically a UFO. It was an unidentified object, but it was called a drone because, we don't know what the pilot really saw. We don't have access to Nav Canada to find out if there's a follow-up investigation. If it's a small black drone flying at 11,000 feet, what the heck was it doing there? And who was actually flying it? If it wasn't a drone, what the heck was it?
Don't know. Do you think we'll ever learn the truth about Yukon?
It's interesting that the document I showed you had a lot of stuff that was blacked out. Why we would still not have all the details if it was in fact a balloon, whether it was a Chinese drone or it had been speculated before, a wayward balloon that was flown by an amateur crew or something like that. If it wasn't anything that was technologically superior or technologically sensitive, tell us about it. So I think with some persistence, maybe from Otis or you or me or some of my other colleagues, maybe we'll get a little more of that blacked out stuff redacted or unredacted. So maybe eventually.
Yeah, I would hope so. But I mean, that whole redacted process, you've been through that a lot more than the majority of us. When they're blacking stuff out like that on paperwork, what are they usually trying to hide?
um,
Is,
I've
is
I've received some NORAD reports, for example, and most of it is blacked out except for some a few words that you can read here and there. And a lot of it is simply because the missions that they're flying are very sensitive. The planes that they're flying maybe have some capabilities that maybe they're doing some surveillance, something like that, while at the same time flying over populated areas. Why would they be doing surveillance, over populated areas? Well, there's a lot of reasons why they would be doing that. Perhaps on behalf of the RCMP, perhaps on behalf of the FBI or the CIA. So there would be reasons to black out documents like that. In the case of the whatever was shot down over the Yukon, I suspect that there's not a lot that would be gained from keeping that from the Canadian public. In fact, giving that information to the Canadian public might go a long way to alleviate concerns about government cover-up and show that the government really is trying to be transparent. And that I know for a fact that's one recommendation that will be made in the Sky Canada project.
3 minutes to go here before we have to say goodnight to you, Chris. Unless you want to stay another half hour, that's up for you. I got time. If you want it, I'll leave that up to you. But 3 minutes to go here. What do you expect coming in the next few months, both down south and up north?
Well, down south, I think I touched on this already. I think the focus is on the election. There's a lot of other concerns out there. I don't think there'll be much action in terms of UAP. Might be some attempts, but the amendments were voted down. There might be a few other things that are going to be tweaked here and there, but I don't think there'll be a lot of action because of the election that's coming up in only a matter of months now. In Canada, the election's a little further away, but I think there's some room because the Canadian report is going to be coming out this fall, and regardless of what it says, it's going to be attracting a lot of attention because I know people are really eager to see what has been done or what they can find out about what's been done, what department is actually looking into the UFOs here in the far north.
Chris, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. Literally, when I say this, you're one of my favorites to have on here because you're just so clear, so concise with the interview. There's no shenanigans, no, overlay of too much paint spray on the paint, if you know what I'm saying. You keep it pretty level and to the core. Very Canadian of you in the way you do that. I hope you continued success in helping get this story out because we need more of Chris Rutkowski's out there really trying to do the dogged homework on bringing the UFO story to light. So congratulations to your hard work.
Thank you. And there is a lot more work to do. I mean, I'm really doing a lot of research for my upcoming book, not released till 2026. So you've got some time. There's a lot of information that I'm finding. I'm finding new stuff every day. And, just wait. There'll be some interesting stuff coming.
Well, you know what? I hope you share that with us. And do me a favor before we say goodnight to you. Could you please tell everybody where they could get your books?
Well, the best way to get my books now is on Amazon. Just look up my name, Chris Rutkowski, and UFO. I think Amazon currently has maybe 7 of my books right now. I'm available. I'm also on social media. You mentioned ufology research on social media, on X and on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm one of the admins for UFO groups as well.
Beautiful. Chris Rutkowski, everybody. Coming up next, Steve Stockton. He'll kick off hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio right after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we are clear, my man.
Okay, well, that was good. Next time, hit record, and it'll be good.
We will talk to you very soon, okay?
Okay, thanks a lot. See you, Dave.
All right, Chris, take care. Chris Rutkowski, everybody. I love him. I love him. He is such an amazing brain when it comes to this subject. I'll be right back, everybody. Okay, guys, I want you to do me a favor, okay? Because we do not have Robin Haynes tonight due to the 4th of July, and most of my cryptid people are in the United States. So we're going to do something that we don't normally do. I'm going to take your questions until the bottom of the hour. So after or when Steve Stockton starts, start putting your questions in capital letters, proper questions, and I will answer your questions. We're going to do some audience time here with you guys. Okay. Oh, El Guapo is great, Christine. He's amazing. Hi, Pyramid 7. How you doing? Good to have you here. All right. Let's go to... All right, here we go, everybody. Here we go. We're kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us as we continue tonight's show. My name is Dave Scott. Yeah, I'm a guy who wears a lot of tin foil each and every day. I hope you enjoy it too. And yeah, let's check it on out, shall we? What are we doing here? We're going to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. So make sure you check it on out. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night we say hello to Steve Stockton, who brings us another weird story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Nestled in the remote Alaskan wilderness, the once bustling fishing village of Port Chatham now stands eerily abandoned. The remnants of old wooden buildings and rusted fishing boats bear witness to the sudden and terrifying exodus that occurred in the 1950s. The townspeople fled in terror from a creature that had become known as the Hairy Man. This was not just some case of superstitious fear driven by unexplained noises. No, the evidence left behind painted a much more sinister picture. Strange tracks in the snow, claw marks on trees, and eerie howls carried on the wind, all pointed towards something unimaginable, something that cannot be rationally explained or ignored. Legend has it that the Hairy Man, a creature of immense size and strength with the appearance of a monstrous ape, emerged in the early 20th century. At first, its presence was only whispered about, fleeting sightings of a shadowy, hairy figure disappearing into the thick forest surrounding the village. But as time marched on, the encounters grew bolder and more frequent, leading to a string of harrowing events that would forever alter the destiny of Port Chatham. The villagers lived in constant fear, never knowing when or where the Hairy Man would strike next. Its powerful musk lingered in the air, a warning of its looming presence in the darkness of the woods. The legend of the hairy man became ingrained in their minds, a sinister specter haunting their every move. As the fishermen returned from their hauls, they whispered of a mysterious creature known as the hairy man. Some claimed to have seen it lurking near their cabins, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly intelligence. Tools went missing, food stores were raided, and the once familiar sounds of the forest took on a menacing quality. The rustle of leaves now sounded like a warning, while the howls of animals echoed like a call to arms. But the true terror began when the attacks started. Men would wake up in the night to find their homes ransacked and their bodies covered in scratches and bite marks, as if they had been attacked by some savage beast. The villagers lived in fear, never knowing when or where the hairy man would strike next. One local fisherman swore he had been stalked through these dense woods, the earth quaking with each heavy footstep of the creature behind him. Another told a harrowing tale of an encounter inside his isolated cabin, the creature relentlessly trying to break down the door while the man cowered in terror. But perhaps the most bone-chilling incident was the one that took place at the town's cannery, where workers reported hearing blood-curdling screams and seeing eerie shadows darting past their peripheral vision. Each account only added to the growing fear and mystery surrounding this elusive and dangerous creature lurking in their very midst. The cannery, the beating heart of Port Chatham's economy, was discovered in utter ruin one morning. The once bustling machinery lay smashed and twisted, its metal parts scattered about like the aftermath of a violent storm. Walls that once stood tall and proud were now reduced to rubble, as if they had been viciously clawed and torn apart. The heavy stench of decay hung thick in the air, overpowering any trace of the familiar ocean breeze. It was clear that this destruction was not the work of any natural animal. On the contrary, it was as if some enraged creature had unleashed its fury upon the very symbol of human intrusion into its territory. The scene was a haunting reminder that nature would forever reign supreme over man-made structures and industries. Fearing for their very lives and the tenuous grip on their sanity, the residents of Port Chatham were forced to make the heart-wrenching decision to abandon their homes. Hastily throwing together whatever meager belongings they could carry, they fled in terror from the cursed town, leaving behind a desolate and abandoned ghost town. The mere thought of the hairy man, with his fearsome reputation and chilling presence, was enough to send shivers down their spines and drive them away from everything they had ever known. No longer did the warm glow of lights spill out from the windows or the sound of laughter echo through the streets. Now, only an eerie silence lingered, hanging heavy in the air like a thick fog, a constant reminder of the horrors that once lurked within this forsaken place. Today, Port Chatham stands as a haunting reminder of the untamed wilderness that encircles us. The broken and decaying buildings, slowly being consumed by nature, serve as a silent testament to the power of fear and the enduring mystery of the unknown. While skeptics dismiss the legend of the hairy man as mere superstition or even a case of mass hysteria, those who have braved a visit to the abandoned village speak of an unsettling presence felt lurking in the shadows.
Thank you to Steve Stockton from Tales Untold for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel and we'll get on that. You can get it for free right there. All right. Normally we do the cryptid report with Robin Haynes tonight, but, circumstances in the United States, considering, a little bit of the 4th of July action, it means that we're not going to be able to be there. So what we're doing is we're going to take some audience questions coming up here to try and answer some of your questions. Let's have some fun, shall we? Let's get right to it. We're going to start off with a question from, let's see here. Let me get it all lined up. And let's start off with Sierra here. Dave, which paranormal encounters have affected you the most? I would say the one that affected me the most was back in December of 2011. Pardon me, was it 2011? Yeah, 2011. When I saw the angel of death in my mother's eyes. That one tripped me out. My beautiful blue-eyed mother with having jet black eyes with white pupils, pardon me. And when I kind of looked, I got sick to my stomach immediately. And that's what really started this whole drive, was seeing that. I never thought I would. Didn't expect anything weird to ever happen. The other one would be the more recent one, where at our local museum, where I do a ghost tour, where I had one of my patrons get possessed by a spirit. I'd never seen that before. I hope I don't ever see it again. She was bent right over on a 90-degree angle with her hands fidgeting with her fingers. Her face morphed into something that did not look like her. Her voice changed to something deeper, more angry. I wouldn't say demonic, because I don't believe it was demonic. It took about 30 minutes to get that spirit out of her. It was weird. Very, very weird. You just never know what's going to happen in that type of situation. And look, there's a reason why, whether you believe in the paranormal or not, and when we get people on the tour, like I have a tour this weekend, and one of the things I always say to my tour is, whether you believe in the paranormal or not, the spirits don't care. They don't. They could get somebody who's skeptical. They could get somebody who's a believer. They don't care. I've seen too much action where weird stuff has happened. And you have to have a healthy respect for it, even if you are truly skeptical. Let's go to Philip. Dave, have you ever had a guest on from New Zealand? I do not think we have. Maybe in the past we have once. I've tried. Haven't had much luck with that. Let's go to necessary dialogue here. How many UFO sightings do you think go unreported in Canada? Well, according to MUFON, if you break down the numbers, it's about 1 in every 100, maybe 1,000 that actually do get reported. There's a number of reasons behind that. Number one, most people who have UFO sightings don't know where to report it. Number two, they don't want to report it because they don't want their name tied to their experience. They just slough it off. They keep it for fireside chat or cup of coffee conversations. That one night I saw this weird light in the sky. And for many people, I would say the majority, that's good enough. But the biggest reason why I think people do not report their sightings is because they don't want the laughter. They don't want the X-Files music. They don't want the nickname alien guy or UFO girl. They don't want that. They don't want to be bugged about being anal probed by aliens, because that always seems to come up for some reason. Hell, I've had buddies who still to this day do it to me. I just laugh it off. Tell them, just wait. They're coming for you. They're coming for you. Right? So those are the two biggest reasons why I don't think people report it. And there really isn't a good place in Canada to take reports. Outside of maybe in Ontario, Ryan Stacey's group, Tessa, they're pretty good. MUFON Canada isn't bad, but they don't have any investigators out west. So it's extremely limited on where to actually send that report. I do not recommend people to go to Enigma. I know Enigma Labs has been advertising heavily on social media, asking for reports out of Canada. I do not recommend that whatsoever, because literally you're giving your information to a government contractor who is going to turn that information right over to the United States military and government. Canadians don't need to be tracked that way. So think about that. Dr. Dan Villiers. Maybe it's Villiers. What do you think of Chris Bledsoe? Is it me, or are there a lot more folks reporting orbs? I have met Chris personally. I have interviewed him 3 times on this show. And Chris Bledsoe is a very, very humble, nice man. Look, I'm not saying that just to stay away from controversy. I know there's a lot of people who think that he's a nut bar. There's a lot of people out there who think that, he's just filming satellites or Starlink or many other type of weird stuff. That's easily explainable. But I think Chris Bledsoe is telling the truth. I really do. And there's a reason why the United States government is investigating him. University scholars are investigating him. There's a reason why his reports have been taken very seriously by the Vatican. This is all stuff that is not made up. I know one person, I'm not going to mention her name. I know one person personally who was working on a television pilot that they were trying to do with Chris Bledsoe. And he was threatened with his life that if he flew out to LA, he was going to die. An agent that follows him and his story made a phone call. And when she went out for dinner with this agent and herself and Chris Bledsoe to a dinner in Los Angeles, every street corner had black marked vehicles on it and men with machine guns standing outside. Like he was some sort of major politician or high-level celebrity. She was actually quite intimidated by this, but felt quite safe at the same time. Chris is very protected because he is seeing what he's seeing. Is there a lot more folks reporting orbs? Yes, there are. Because when a topic gets popular, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. Go back about 6-7 years when social media really started taking off. I remember I had listeners. They would come in every night, talk about how they wished they had psychic powers. 6 months later, there's a couple of them, both doing readings online for people that they are truly entirely psychic. People do jump on the bandwagon when something popular comes up. I think we're seeing that with orbs right now. Do I believe orbs are some part of the phenomena? Yes, they are. Some of them are explainable. Others are not. I think you need to check the person's background before claiming that everything could be fake. Let's go to Pixie Lara. If you could visit anywhere in the world and look for ghosts, UFOs, or Bigfoot, what would be your top 3 places and why? Oh, that's a good question. I believe there is it, pardon me. I'm just Googling something right now. And my fingers aren't working very well. I want to go to Hoia Baciu, and that is in Bulgaria. It is considered the haunted forest. And apparently they have areas there where nothing grows. Nothing. It's considered the most haunted forest in the world. I would love to go there. I would love to go to Mount St. Helens to look for Sasquatch. I would. I think that would be amazing. My third place that I would like to go, and I know this one's going to sound cliche, but I really want to go to Skinwalker Ranch. Brandon Fugel, if you're listening, Davey needs some Skinwalker Ranch time. Davey needs some of that. Bring the sugar, Brandon, because old Davey's going to come down there and rock it with some of those ghosts. 11 is asking, I was asked by a friend to crochet a fidget toy for this friend to give to Bigfoot. Is it safe to give toys to Bigfoot, and does Bigfoot like fidgets? Well, I don't know if Bigfoot actually likes fidgets, but in my case, I actually do have a gifting site that has toys in it. Now, from people I've talked to on this show, apparently Bigfoot likes bright toys. Reds, blues, greens, yellows. Really likes them. Now, it's funny because in my area, I have never had our stuff played with. Yet I know people who have had gifting sites where literally they've got all sorts of things out there. You know, they've had all sorts of things taken. So it's kind of cool. Whether that continues or not, don't know. Don't know. I know at my gifting site it hasn't worked, but I do have one toy that had moved from a different gifting site, and I have it at my desk at my daytime job. All right. Let's move on. We got a lot of questions here with only 3 minutes left. I don't know. Maybe I'll carry it on. Maybe I will. Make that toy, by the way, 11. Get that toy made. Simon is asking, Dave, what's the plan next trip to the Bigfoot spot? I am going back there on Sunday during the day, and I'm going to go check if our gift was received because they left us the staff for Merle, and I'm going to see if they've taken our gift back. The problem is that area can be high traffic at times, and somebody could be there to take it. I'm hoping not, but we're going to find out on Sunday. Sweet Tony D in the UK. The Nazca corpses are looking like they were possibly living beings. Are these cryptids a form of disclosure? And pilots of UFOs, real or fake? What's your thoughts? My jury is still out on the Nazca mummies. There's a lot of brilliant scientists who have seen the studies done on them and the paperwork and research done who will say that they were not aliens. I know Jaime Maussan will not let it go, but I'm hoping to get more clarity on that one. PRM is asking 2 questions, Dave. Do you think disclosure will happen in your lifetime? And 2, what or why do you think the aliens are coming to Earth? What is their purpose? What do they want to do? It's like 4 questions, man. Thank you. I don't think disclosure will happen. I don't think there will be ever a true disclosure in our lifetime. Do I think we'll see aliens in our lifetime? There's a grand possibility of that. But true disclosure means we get to know everything. The U.S. government loves their secrets. That's why they have so many alphabet agencies. And for those agents and agencies listening on in, hi, how are you? Give us a call sometime and say hello. You don't need my phone number because you already got it. Why are the aliens coming here? Well, if they're coming from outer space, we are a good tourist attraction. We are the best reality TV show out there. We got bloodlust, war, sex, drugs, violence, rock and roll, sports, drama. We got it all here. What more do they need? Their purpose? Well, just like back in the 1700s when we were exploring the world via the oceans. They could be explorers. They could have settlements here that we don't know about. Could be a lot more. When we return on Spaced Out Radio, I'm going to continue with a few more audience questions. We'll get into the Dave 101 as well. It's the weird news of the week. We'll try and jam that all in the final half hour. One of them may go. I'm not sure which. but we'll get to something. My name is Dave Scott. This is Spaced Out Radio, and we'll be back for the final half hour right after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
Beautiful. Sierra, we will try and get Diana Pasolka back on. I haven't talked to her in a long time. Is it Villiers or Villiers, Dr. Dan? And I appreciate the compliment. Thank you very much. Tom Girl, welcome to SOR Chat. Paul Demon, how are you? Close Encounters of the Third Kind's not a big favorite Bigfoot movie. But I'll ask that question, Joe. I'll just rephrase it. Tom Girl, you did not get skipped. You did not get skipped. Let me make sure you didn't. No, your question's up next about national parks. Somebody is asking in the chat room, when will Super Duke come back on the show? I don't know. I don't know. And I'll leave it at that. Lisa Smith, how are you? It is Villiers. Okay. Villiers in French. See, the Canadian way to say that would be Villiers. But since you're in the United States, Villiers works for me. Glad you're here, my man. Tim Mothman, how's the goatee tonight, man? Give us an update on that goatee. Still waiting, Tim. Where's the update on that goatee? Am I bummed out about the Oilers losing PRM? Yeah, of course I am. I am hugely bummed out. But I like what we did in free agency. I like what we did in the NHL draft. I think next year we're going to see some really good stuff. I wish they would have got a little bit more physical. We don't have a lot of rock'em sock'em type guys. But that's the way it is. Good update, Tim Mothman, who says his goatee is well oiled and trimmed. Oh, yes, PRM. The agony of defeat. still hurts. Whatever happened to that guy? Remember on the ABC's Wide World of Sports, where they always had the dude wiping out going down the ski jump as the agony of defeat? Whatever happened to him? Let's Google that. Whatever happened to agony of defeat guy? Vinko Bogdanovich. He's a painter. Suffered a mild concussion and broken ankle when he crashed. Thank you to Kira, Philip, Joe, T-Bone times 2, W. Decker, and Aloha Dave for the super chats. Appreciate that. That's 7 seconds. All right, let's kick off the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Normally we go to the Thought of the Dave or the Dave 101, whatever you want to call it. We're going to continue. We got some really awesome audience questions coming up here. We really do. We're going to try and squeeze a little bit more in as well as we speak. Hey, very rarely I get to take questions like this from the audience, so sometimes you got to have some fun. Sometimes you got to change things up. You can't always do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Isn't that a key to insanity? Right? I think so. I do. But we're going to continue with some audience questions here. Let's go to Tom Girl, who is asking, do you think that national parks and other government land are containment zones for Bigfoot? No, I do not. Sasquatch has been seen in a lot of areas. Now, federal land and national parks can't do anything about that because if nobody owns it, the government does. So the Bigfoot has that area. Same if it's provincial or state parks. I don't think, like a lot of people do, that Bigfoot is being controlled by some sort of mafioso within the U.S. government. I don't believe that. There's no evidence of it. A lot of people talk about it, but I don't buy it. What I do buy, though, is that there is a fear of keeping this story quiet because, number one, people are afraid of monsters. And if you tell them there's monsters in the forest, they're not going to go there. Number two, if they prove Sasquatch's existence, you know what happens? They cordon off the area. Not for the sake of killing the Sasquatch. Get that out of your conspiracy theory heads. They do it because they have to find out for any new species or endangered species found in an area, they have to find out where it's living, the food sources, the water sources, what is in the ground that's keeping them there, what is their sources of energy, how much sunshine do they have. They have to do complete studies. Then for the public, they have to shut down hiking, shut down 4x4ing, ATVing. They get rid of hiking. I think I said that. They get rid of everything in that environment. So that way they can study whatever it is. It happened in Oregon a number of years ago where they found an endangered species owl. They cordoned off the entire area so they could study the owl. In British Columbia, where I am, and in many other areas, there's a lot of people who rely on the forest. Okay, whether it's loggers, tourism, like camping, hunting, fishing, ATVing. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to give up for what's potentially a monster. And I shouldn't call Bigfoot a monster, but we're just using that in technical terms. So that's why I think those areas are watched. Let's go to T-Bone. Have you ever had Dr. Shipe as a guest? And there are a lot of dragon believers on SOR. Do you have an opinion on dragons? Never had Dr. Shipe on. At least I don't think so. I've had like about 1,500 different guests on this show. Should probably look into that. Maybe I have. I don't remember. Do I have an opinion on dragons? No. I think if anything, they're probably like the Thunderbird. Pterodactyls. I think there's more chances of pterodactyls still being around than dragons. Outside of the Komodo dragon, the bearded dragon. My ex-mother-in-law. No, I don't think so. I don't think they're here. Let's go to Laura. Dave, we know your son likes looking for Bigfoot, but how does he feel about ghosts? Are you teaching him to investigate? He's seen ghosts. Yeah. He really, as far as him personally, he hasn't really got into the ghost thing. Right now, he's into the hockey thing. He goes in phases about every 4 to 6 months. So right now, he's in his hockey phase, which I said to him about damn time. Prior to that, he was in his airplane phase. Prior to that, he was in his country phase. Before that, it was the flag phase. Before that, it was Transformers. Before that, it was guitar. Before that, it was swimming. Before that, school buses. See where he wants to go with it. I'll always investigate with him because it's kind of cool. I'm going to see if he'll go out Sunday looking for Bigfoot with me. I'd like to get him out of the house. Sierra is asking, Dave, are you not afraid of the hitchhiker effect if you go to skinwalkers? No. Not at all. Not at all. Don't worry about it. I'm just not worrying about it. Joe is asking, what is your favorite cryptid UFO Bigfoot movie, ghost movie? He says his is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Mine too. I love Close Encounters. Scary, I would say M. Night Shyamalan Signs. That's one of my favorites. If I want to get freaked out, I don't do horror movies. I used to as a kid. I don't do them anymore. They don't do anything like Friday the 13th or Child's Play or, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't do any of that. Suspense, though, like Paranormal Activity or the Blair Witch Project, those ones scare the hell out of me. Oh, yeah. And no, I will not watch Jaws. No. Nope. Will not watch Jaws or any movie that depicts sharks. It literally traumatizes me. Totally does. I am deathly afraid of sharks, even though I love them. Okay? It's the weirdest thing. Like, I love sharks. Like watching these, a lot of these YouTube shorts on great white sharks. It is amazing how beautiful they are. But they don't need to eat me. I'm a meal. That's why I stay out of the ocean. No point. And there's nothing good that happens in the ocean, people. Submarines, sharks, megalodon, great whites, kraken. Everything wants to eat you in the ocean. I don't want to be eaten. Philip Blair. How do you make a gifting site? How do you know where to set up a gifting site for Sasquatch? Number one, you want to find an area where you know that there has been action. Maybe there's footprints. Maybe there's trees that have been interwoven in between other trees to look like a giant X. Where we put our gifting site, we had 3 giant X's in a row in the trees. One across the logging road, one on the other side of the logging road, and one in behind it. We put it in behind the middle one, and we've had no action there, except once with the mirror. That could have been an animal. I don't know. I didn't have a trail cam at that time. But what do you put in there? Bright objects. Things that they may want to trade. At my gifting site, I have toy cars. I have a hairbrush. I have a mirror, which I've been told by many people, don't put a mirror up. They've never seen themselves. Well, there's a mirror up there. I have plastic dollar store toy animals. I have toy balls from the dollar store. I have dice. I have those glass rocks that come in different colors. That's what I got. I don't put food out. I never put food. Now, I know people who are in a high densely active Sasquatch area who will put apples out. In my area, between the grizzly bears, the black bears, the 8-foot tall moose, I don't put any food out. Let's go to Lisa. Can you check out, maybe invite Danny Henderson? She's perfect guest. Her book is Angels, Demons, and Aliens. I think you'd love her. Yeah, we can do that. Thank you, Lisa. Simon is asking, is there a guest in particular you'd never have on? Oh, we have a list. We have a list. I'll tell you one story on this. When I was in probably year 2 or 3 of SOR, it would have been year 2. I'm not going to give the author's name, but he was British, and he was living in the United States. And I called him up, finally got a hold of him about 25 minutes before showtime, because I call all my guests the day of the show. Communicate with them, make sure they're real. Well, his publicist never sent me a copy of his book. So he says, have you read my book? I said, no, but I've done a lot of research on it. I said, you don't need to worry, I'll be prepared. He says to me, I highly doubt that. I'm not sure why we're doing the interview if you haven't read my book. And he was acting all offended. I said, sir, I am a professional journalist. If I don't know how to answer or ask a question, I wouldn't be able to do my job. And he's like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to do this. I said, well, we're 25 minutes from showtime. I need to know, because I'm not going to waste my time. And he's pouting about this. And finally, he goes, I said to him, you know what? We don't have to do this. And he goes, no, let's do it. It's probably not going to be very good, but let's just do it. And I said to him, no, we're not going to do it. I find you very insulting, and I'm not going to give you any airtime on my show. So I didn't. I went on with something else. 5 years later, his publicist calls me up and says, my author has a brand new book out that would be perfect for Spaced Out Radio. We'd love to get this person on the air to talk with you, Dave. And I politely sent an email back to this person saying, sorry, I will never have your client on my radio show ever again. And let me tell you why. And I listed everything about the way this jerk treated me on the phone that day. And I said, he has been number one on my list of never coming back on this show or coming on the show ever. Thank you. I said, I would love to talk to any other author you have regarding these subjects. But as for this particular one, tell him to go shove it where the sun don't shine. His book, that is. And I've never heard from his publicist or him again. I wonder why. There's a few guests I won't have on. I will not have anybody who lies on their resume about who they are or what they're about. If you have to lie on your resume to make a name for yourself, example, there are a lot of fake journalists in this field. There are a lot of fake scientists in this field of research. I will not put them on the air. I won't. I won't put on the air people who are extremely rude. There's one person out there who owns their own network. When I was in Toronto in 2019, gave me the cold shoulder for 15 minutes while I was sitting across from him. Couldn't even muster up a hello to me as a fellow speaker at that conference. Thought he was better than me. He not coming on. Nope. So if you're an idiot, you ain't coming on this show. My audience, being all of you, doesn't deserve the jerks who think they're better than us. Let's go to Philip. Question: would you ever have on Ukrainian-American author Paul Stonehill, who writes about UFOs, Forteana, and the paranormal in the former Soviet Union, China, Russia, and Eurasia? Of course. Why wouldn't I? See, the thing with booking guests and what you don't know is a lot of people don't respond. They don't respond. There's a lot of guests who've been on this show before, love Spaced Out Radio, but they never respond back to an interview request. They don't. There's nothing I can do. If somebody doesn't return an email, a Facebook message, a tweet, a phone call, can't do much about that. Let's go here to PRM. I remember a couple weeks ago you talked about being in contact with Lou Elizondo's people for him to return to the show. Can you provide any update on this? You talked about it with Courtney. I have no update on that. They seem to respond every couple weeks. Then they'll ask me for the same thing, and they'll respond a couple weeks later. So there's not much I can do about that. Not much I can do. Tony is saying, Dave, did you know there was a UFO in the Jaws movie? I found out this week in the UFO Club. That's fine. I am not going back to watch Jaws to see if there's a UFO that was accidentally filmed in it. No way. Not fun to face trauma head on. And Jaws is trauma for me. Total trauma. Trauma llama. Yeah. Besides, I'm tired of the UFO thing. Very tired of it. Not the subject, but the whole politics side of it all. Done. Done with it. Too many people actually believe that they're going to bring disclosure forward. I think the information won't come out. And I'll eat my words if they do. I have no problem saying that in, say, a year from now, they come out and say UFOs are real. I have no problem eating my own words on that. And I will apologize to my audience, which is all of you, for leading you down a different path that I believed. But I'm just not seeing where this disclosure is going to happen. And what disclosure are we going to get? That's the hard one. Which one are we going to get? I don't want the fake disclosure, aka confirmation. I don't want that. I want the good stuff. Bring us the juice. After all this time, if you're going to go this far, fill up our glass with the juice. Make it juicy. Lots of pulp. Unless it's apple juice. You don't want pulp in that. We deserve a right to know. We do not deserve the right to say what will be edited for us, which they will hide under national security. That's my feeling on it. I don't know how you feel about that. That's just the way I feel. I want to be able to know everything. I know that sounds so greedy, but I want to know everything about what's going on. I want to know the secrets. Maybe not the deep, dark secrets. Okay? I don't need to know some of that. But I at least want some confirmation. Did Eisenhower meet with aliens? Did Lazar work at Area 51? What replaced the SR-71 when he retired at 33 years ago? Do we have alien craft? Do we have non-human intelligence bodies? And why did you come up with that idiotic, stupid acronym UAP? I know why. It's just because they wanted to hide the good stuff. And they could involve that into UAP. Drives me nuts. I want to know if there's a list of people they know that's been abducted. Imagine that. Imagine what that would stir up. Yeah. We can only wish, right? Thank you for your great questions tonight. That's why I got the best audience in the world. As we say hello, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in, at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends, say it with me, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. The seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Have a good one. Good stuff tonight, guys. Hello, Data. How are you? Doug Shelby is here. Late. The late Doug Shelby has arrived. But be damned if I'm restarting this show. The Doug Shelby. Thank you. Got some really good guests coming up. Nancy Thames, Jim Harold, Science Bob, Heidi Hollis, Daniel Harari, Trey Hudson, Geraldine Stith, John Kachuba. Geraldine Stith is somebody I've wanted to interview for a long time. She had encounters with Kentucky goblins. Yeah. Yeah. 'Tis true. Kentucky goblins. Warden Dragon. Warden Dragon. Piss me off, Evan Malters. No update on Terry Wrist, guys. Sorry. Still debating what to do with that. Frontier Studies. What's happening? How's everybody's 4th of July? It's good? I am doing a show about the Kentucky goblins. Not the Hellier ones. The other ones. I'm excited about that. I'm truly excited about that one. Good night, New Westminster, the former capital of British Columbia. I remember as a kid growing up, I always thought it was Minister, Westminster, but it's not. It's Minster. Oh, today's day 1 of the WSOP. I better go watch that. Catch the highlights. You know what I hate about the last number of WSOPs? Is how many times do they have to put the camera on Ray Romano? You got 10,000 players there, and they keep got to put that freaking camera on Ray Romano all the time. He's not funny. Ray Romano was never funny. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Okay, but he's like Bob Saget, was never funny. They moved. When did I think it was in the 1800s. When did BC's capital move from New Westminster to Victoria? May 25th, 1868. Did you know that Dave guy on Full House dated Alanis Morissette when she was 19 and he was like 30? Yes, that's what I believe the song You Ought to Know is supposed to be about. They believe it's about him. She's never given up who it is. Guaranteed right now, the Doug Shelby is wearing a sleeveless, fully coated American flag t-shirt with red, white, blue laces, or red laces on one, white on the other, with blue shoes. A ball cap that reads USA on it. And after all that, he has a banana hammock on in the Stars and Stripes.
With your host, Dave.
That's what I think. He's been drinking Budweiser all day. America's beer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug Shelby. The Doug Shelby. The. Anybody, I see what you did there. You know, smacking around Taylor Swift there. I like Taylor Swift. I do. I think she's a very talented woman. And I think, from what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of the highlights. Like, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a Taylor Swift fan. Couldn't even name a song of hers before she started dating Travis Kelce. But I've watched a lot of her Eras tour on YouTube. That thing looks pretty impressive. I would totally go to that concert. I totally would. And if I was single, I definitely would go to that concert. Definitely. If you can't meet a lady at a Taylor Swift concert, you got no game at all. Oh, see, Skip to My Lou? That's where you're wrong. I don't find Taylor Swift attractive at all. I think she's pretty. Not my type. Not what I look for. I think she's a very talented, incredible woman. I do. Tim Mothman and your goatee, you can be my wingman. You and Joe Monk. White girl can't dance, but she can play guitar and she can sing. And I don't think she uses a lot of auto-tune like others do. Brittany, Christina. The Doug Shelby. There may be a lot of 12-year-olds there, but they all have mothers, and a lot of them are divorced. I'm getting into the area now where a lot of them have good-looking grandmothers. Oh, God, I never thought I would say that in my life. Oh, my God. She's putting up numbers that even some of the greatest bands of all time have never done. Like, if you gave me a choice to go see the current rendition of the Rolling Stones next tour, I believe the tour's name is Where's My Wheelchair? Or to see Taylor Swift, 100% of the time I would go see Taylor Swift. %100 of the time. Nature's calling. I'll be right back. Don't leave. I'm back. What did I miss? All right. Go here. Go there. Clear that. Yes, Sierra, I know. My picture is going to go a little fuzzy here because I'm uploading to my radio stations. It's going to bring my signal level down. Who's on the show tomorrow night? Our Keith Andrews tomorrow night, everybody. Our Keith Andrews. Who doesn't need a little R. Keith in their life? Hi, Lex Diaz. All right, guys. We're going to say goodnight to you. Our Keith Andrews tomorrow night. Thank you to T-Bone ×2. Aloha Dave, W. Decker, Joe, Philip, Kira. T-Bone again for the hat trick. And Necessary Dialogue for the super chats. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Have a good one, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.